There's something sacred about the final ID viewing. It's not for the public. It's not for show. It's just the family, quiet, raw, in that narrow space between acceptance and disbelief. My job in those moments is simple: preserve dignity, honor the life, and make sure the details, the deeply human ones, are handled with care. This was a Tuesday morning, rain in the forecast. I remember because I brought a towel to cover the family's windshield in case it started pouring during the service. That's the kind of detail we think about in this line of work. Things most people never notice. The decedent was a man in his mid-60s. David L. Complications from a stroke. DNR was honored, peaceful passing in his home with hospice present. His wife of 41 years, Eleanor, requested a private ID viewing before cremation. No embalming, just gentle preparation, hair combed, mouth set, eyes closed, clean clothes, hands folded, direct cremation after viewing. He arrived the day before, no autopsy, so the body was intact. Cooling was done promptly. I'd done the prep myself, washed, disinfected, positioned, a light dab of balm at the corners of his mouth, subtle, natural, no cosmetics. His wife didn't want him altered. I wheeled him into our ID room, a simple space, softly lit, neutral walls, calming artwork. The kind of place designed not to impress, but to feel safe. I left the room to bring Eleanor in. When I returned, she was holding his hand, trembling, whispering. She asked me for a moment alone. I nodded, stepped out, gave her the time. 10 minutes passed. I always give people longer than they think they need. When I came back in, she wiped her eyes and gave a small nod. I offered to help her back to the sitting area. That's when it happened. As I turned to adjust the gurney's position for transport prep, I leaned in slightly. It was quiet, still, and I heard it, clear, calm, familiar. Michael, not loud, not a whisper, just spoken, as if from someone who had known me long enough to say it plainly. I froze. There was no one else in the room. Eleanor had already stepped into the hall. I looked down. The decedent's expression hadn't changed. Lips closed, mouth relaxed, eyes sealed with closure gel and firm lids. No movement. But I had heard it, my name, not once, not repeated, just once. Enough. My first reaction wasn't fear, it was confusion, followed closely by doubt. Then training kicked in. The possibility of post-mortem air movement is real. Bodies can shift slightly as gases settle or escape, especially if there's residual air in the lungs or throat. It can cause faint sounds like a soft exhale, or even a subtle moan if the glottis isn't fully relaxed. That's rare, but it's documented. I've witnessed it before. But that wasn't this. This wasn't air. This wasn't the accidental movement of tissue. This was a word. My name. I stepped back, checked the room, checked the hallway. No speakers, no radios. My phone was on silent in my pocket. I looked again at him. Still. Peaceful. As I had left him, I've thought about that moment more than I care to admit. Rationally, I can't explain it, and I don't try to anymore. Some people ask if this job makes you numb. It doesn't. It teaches you respect, for silence, for grief, for mystery. Later that day, I sat in the break room finishing my log sheet. One of our apprentices, a newer kid named Tom, asked if anything odd ever happened in the prep room. I said yes and no. And that either way you show up, do it right, and let the family have their moment. But deep down, I was still turning that moment over in my mind. I know what I heard, and I know this work is filled with things we can't always explain. But what matters most isn't whether it makes sense. It's whether we carry it with dignity. David was cremated that Friday. His wife sent a handwritten card a week later, said he'd always liked the name Michael, said her husband was a quiet man, but always remembered names. I folded the card and tucked it into my drawer with the others, and I moved on. But I'll never forget how he said it. Not with fear, not with urgency, just with the kind of calm that makes you feel known, even at the end. Hello friends, thank you for watching. A special shout out to our subscribers. You keep these eerie stories alive. But here's the thing, only 30% of viewers are subscribed. If you enjoy our content, hitting subscribe helps us more than you know. It takes a second, but makes a huge difference. While you're at it, like and share to keep the chills coming. Thanks again. You made this possible. See you in the next one, if you dare.